Okay, I'll let you in on a little shut up and sit down production secret. In that last Small Games Roundup video, that was the real Adrian Brody. And his day rate was absolutely astronomical. It cost us everything. £234.16. Everything! I don't even know why we got him in. He doesn't even like board games. And so, dear viewer, there's no other way of putting this, we're ruined. Matt's had to sell off all of his wigs, and I've had to cancel my subscription to Whirly Weekly. The only way to recoup our costs is to return to the same format that cost us everything in the first place. That's right, it's yet another Small Games Roundup video. Now, regrettably, for this installment, we did have to sell a few ad spaces to keep us in the green, but I'm sure that it's not going to be that noticeable.
Adrian Brody beans, in no time at all, you'll be as broad as an Adrian. Buy it now.
What if you were a samurai leader trying to take over Japan with your military might? You're imagining it, aren't you? You'd like to best your opponents in combat, yeah? With a sword? Yeah, you'd like that very much. Joraku is yet another trick taker with a twist, and once again I'm going to make the case for why this one is worth your time, because it's as prickly as a porcupine that's pointing at a power point. Listen, okay, it wants the job, it's come prepared, please respect its acumen. The first thing that you will notice in this particular card game is a board, depicting the 7 canonical regions of Japan: Kyoto, 1, 2, 3, and so on. This board is going to host a whole bunch of fighting, because these little wooden mens are going to smush up against each other in squabbles over Japan's most abundant natural resource, victory points. But the way they'll do this is via the medium of a must-follow trick-taking game. Play a card from your hand, and everyone must play one of the same suit, if able, with the highest card of any suit taking the win. But both playing cards and winning tricks come with strings attached. Whoa! Playing a card lets you do one of two things. You can either squirt a splodge of soldiers onto a region that matches the number of the card, so a 6 would get me a little motley crew in the 6 region, or you can use the value of the card as action points for messing around with your existing soldiers that are already on the board. For 1 action point, you may move a soldier to an adjacent region. And for 2 action points, you may move your daimyo, this big figure, to an adjacent region. And for 1 action point again, you can commit a murder. It's nice, actually, the murder. They like that. Now, these card actions are how you're going to fight for control of each of these regions on the board, because at the end of each round, whichever player has the majority in each region will score some points. But, and this is most important, along the way, the winner of each trick will immediately cause a mini scoring session in the region where their daimyo is located, a region that isn't necessarily the one where they have the most pieces. If you are anything like me, then your face is doing some serious expressions right now, the kind that might accompany some nuanced gossip or a complex bowel movement. Now, the puzzle here is just super compelling. You're constantly trying to wrestle the trick-taking game into the floor so that you can snag those mini-scoring opportunities, whilst also simultaneously corralling your forces around the board to be at the right place in the right time, like a sort of deadly mother duck. Oh, and you just gotta peep the subtleties on this one. It's your duty to peep 'em. The points for each region shift over the course of the game, with power gently trickling towards Kyoto, a fact that is further wrinkled by its numberless status. These extra ninja cards pop up in every suit and can be used to short-circuit tricks in surprising ways, whilst offering flexibility in where you might appear on the board. And on top of all this, the fact that it's not the highest suited card, but the highest card full stop that wins the trick, it means that you can grab yourself a hot dub from an unexpected direction with some clever card counting. But even without all of these wrinkles, I just love how Joraku constantly creates narrative tension. Winning a trick and becoming the lead for the next puts you in a precarious position. Is this the start of a fearsome streak, or is it a mere moment in the sun before one of your opponents slips razor blades into your raisin bran?
Get yourself a breakfast a cut above the rest.
Right, we're gonna get traditional with this one. The Bottle Imp has been around for 30 years, previously existing in this mildly haunted version before being reintroduced to society in its clean shirt and sharp tie. What we've got here is the latest Matago re-release that makes a whole bunch of changes. It nixes the, it updates the artwork, and it expands the player count from the initially very restrictive just 3 players to between 2 and 6. And I know what you're thinking. Thomas, it sure seems like doubling the player count of this strictly 3-player game is a fool's errand and an act of great hubris. And I would tell you, yep. I really admire the classic iteration of the Bottle Imp, unafraid of insisting that it's only for 3 players, unafraid of telling you the story it is based on through its card artwork, unafraid of what you might choose to do with its adequately flared bottle. The Matago version, it is the coward's choice. It lets you play with a decadent number of players, it updates the artwork to a kind of clean faux tribal aesthetic that you might find on a deadlifter's bicep, and these bottles, well, you be the judge. All of this is to say that I secretly prefer the old version of this one, but if you get the new version, which you probably will because it's available, I reckon you should play it at its preferred player count of 3 players. Because if you do, you're gonna have a blast. So, this is a must-follow trick taker, but with a twist. Sorry! Where you're gonna play cards clockwise into the center of the table, and the highest card, regardless of suit, wins. However, if a player plays a card of lower value than the current asking price for the bottle, denoted by the card parked underneath it in the center of the table, then instead you win the trick and you take the bottle. You set the price of the bottle with the card you used to win, and then we continue playing. If someone plays lower than the new price, then they take the bottle. And if someone plays lower than that, then they take the bottle. So on and so forth until everyone empties their hands, at which point every card that you have won will score positively. But, and here comes the nastiest twist of the tale, if you are left with the bottle at the end of the hand, then all the cards that you won are instead worth negative points. My goodness, if it isn't just a horrible game of limbo, and one that perfectly emulates the source material of a cursed bottle tempting travelers. Slapping down a daringly low card to short-circuit the trick and win out from under the current leader, it feels amazing, and it's a decision that's made with the gut after watching a few too many tricks just slide right past you. Oh, go on, just gimme that. But the consequences of that one moment can be comically dire as you now wrestle with the monkey that's clinging to your back, trying desperately to shift this little curse that you've now bestowed upon yourself. I just love that it never feels safe to play a card in this game, as your winning streak can get absolutely devoured by one false move that saddles you with the bottle right at the close of a hand. It is a tremendously funny game, but it also grows into a more and more tactical one as you begin to speak its language. The more of this that we played, the more that individual moves would elicit sharp intakes of breath or quiet astonishment as a player brought the price of the bottle lower and lower and lower and lower, so secure in the knowledge that someone else was going to get lumped with the consequences. This is a game of cutting it oh so very fine. This is just the kind of tiny box that I absolutely love to see. A really simple gimmick that's been executed perfectly and is wildly thematic, considering it is just a deck of cards and a slightly haunted bottle. It is well worth a punt.
What's for dinner, Mum? When your kids have had enough of an imp in a bottle, keep the spooky sealed, keep the spooky fresh.
This may well be the simplest game ever featured on Shut Up and Sit Down, and I think that this one in particular might need a sturdy push for you discerning folks to become even remotely interested, because at the end of the day, it's basically Snap. But out of all of the games that I played at conventions in 2025, Bean Counters Inc. is the one that definitively made me laugh the most. Picture the scene. I am catastrophically tired after a long day of trudging around the halls with a full backpack and 2 tote bags laden with games. And I sit myself down in the nice, comfy hotel lobby chair just in time to play an exciting little treat. Kalimala, the stunningly old-school Eurogame about making and transporting cloth. A few hours later, and we're putting our little merchant tiles back into their baggies, stuffed full of victory points and ready for bed. But before then, a friend tentatively asks if I'd like to play just one more game. It's very simple, they say. Here's how it works. Draw a card from the top of your personal stack and play it onto the stack in the middle of the table. Every time a card is played, you have to say the next number in an ever-ascending sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, aha! If ever the number in the sequence and the number on the card match, then every player must slam their hand down onto the table, with the player who does it the slowest taking the whole stack and adding it into their hand. And that is basically the whole game. Whoever's got the most cards in their hand at the end is the loser, or whoever's got the fewest is the winner. I don't remember. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Oh, but what's this numberless card? Memo alert? Oh boy. When these start to hit the table, Bean Counters Inc. becomes daft, because each one of these cards adds a new, irritating, awful rule for everyone to follow. Say 5 in a high-pitched voice. Greet yellow cards before playing on them. Remain completely silent, but still keep count after a 7 is played. Count down from 10 and say blast off after 1. It's just a bit silly. Cast your minds back to the Tom of the past, who is now 4 pints deep in the hotel lobby. He's deliriously tired, he doesn't know what way is up anymore, and he's taking fistfuls of coloured cards into his heavy, heavy hands after error after error after error, and he's loving every minute. It's just preposterously silly, because each of these rules stacks on top of each other to create baffling minefields to navigate. And each time a new rule gets floated, the player who most recently took cards can choose if they want to add this new rule or replace an existing one. And would you believe it, but players almost universally choose to add. Time and time again, they make the puzzle harder and harder and harder, hoping that maybe this time they'll slip through it unscathed. And do they? They are only getting worse at this game, they're just hoping that their fellow players are as well. We really love our particular, precise, intelligent table games that really massage the brains of their players, but sometimes, at the end of the day, it's about the eating, isn't it? This mildly ugly black box with its passable graphic design, its creased up paper manual, its totally ignorable theme, it conjures up images of my friends with literal tears of laughter in their eyes, cackling at their own monumental blunders. This is the definition of a silly game, and those are almost never a bad thing to have in your back pocket.
Whatever's in your pocket, it doesn't matter. Pocket nonsense.
Full disclaimer, Naishi was a game that was featured in our Board Games Direct preview series. We did receive money from this publisher to preview this game, but we had no obligation to cover this game or any of their games any further. Like anything else that we have covered from that event since, we're simply covering this game just because we like it. Naishi is a 2-player only tableau builder. We are trying to create the best arrangement of cards in front of you by the end of the game, swapping out these bland and boring mountains for more exciting flags or monks or something. These far more thrilling cards are going to score in different ways, often depending on their position. Forts score if they're at the end of your 2x5 grid, the titular Naishi scores big if placed right in the centre, and extra points if flanked by her gentleman pals. And at the end of the game, whoever's grid is worth the most points will win the crisp £20 note hidden under the insert. All in all, this sounds very chill, but this game has a narrow staircase of restrictions that make it anything but. Firstly, every time you take a card from this central river, you must place it in the same spot in your tableau. Leftmost card in the river, leftmost card in your tableau. And you guessed it, These cards cannot be rearranged by default, meaning that every decision you make will narrow your horizons, which is especially daunting considering some of these cards will cost you points if they're left dangling on their lonesome. The second twist is that this 2x5 grid of cards that you're building towards actually isn't that at all. It's a public line of cards and a hidden hand of cards that only get revealed at the end of the game, meaning that there is this sharp deduction and bluffing aspect. You're constantly trying to scry what your opponent might be holding and parrying those plans by taking a necessary card right out from under them. And finally, there are these little worker discs. They'll let you lightly bend the game around the edges, having you discard cards from the river or gently stirring them around in your tableau. But it's this space that turns the whole game completely on its head. By placing a disc here, you can swap a card from your opponent's hand or line of cards with the corresponding card from your hand or line of cards, meaning that you can take a key part of their strategy and replace it with the worst part of yours at a pivotal moment. But this can only happen exactly once in the entire game for either player, meaning that this particular space is a kind of Stanley knife of Damocles that's hanging over the entire game. This completely recontextualizes cards like the Naishi, a potential 24-point swing if pinched at a pivotal moment. And it snaps the memory aspect into focus as your opponent continually shifts their cards around, trying to evade your slimy paws. I think that Naishi would be a pretty good set collection tableau builder type situation, but it's this element in conjunction with its awfully delicate game end trigger that lines every decision with urgency and intention. It's this short, sharp stab of a game. It's breezy enough to immediately demand another play, but mean enough to vow revenge.
Revenge! Revenge! This is an advert for the concept of revenge. Just try it.
Okay, I am slightly scared of this publisher. Bitewing Games have a frighteningly consistent catalogue. Basically, everything they put out is very good, with spikes of absolute brilliance amongst them. But also, Reiner Knizia needs to take out a restraining order on them. Sure, he's the designer with whom they've worked the most, and the liner notes on all of his games show a reverence and respect for his work that is incredibly flattering. But they've also written these exhaustive, borderline obsessive rankings of all of his games. For this promotional video, they dressed him up like the disgraced uncle of the Spy Kids. And recently, they sent me this truly haunted object, which I did not ask for and think might actually be possessed. Reiner, if you're listening, help is available. I've got a sofa bed, a big bag of cans, and Shrek 2 for the GameCube. A better life awaits. Anyway, whilst they've got Reiner locked up in some unknown facility, he's been making some pretty good games. Iliad is a two-player dueler that retells the epic tale of the Iliad. Except it doesn't really at all. It's an abstract two-player tile placement dueler that retells the epic tale of one player winning and another player losing. So players take it in turns, placing tiles from their hand onto this grid, and when a row or column is full, you work out who has the most total strength, these numbers on all of the tiles. The player with the most gets first pick of the two scoring tiles that cap off either end of the row or column, giving the other to their opponent. And what you're trying to accomplish by placing out these tiles is to collect a full set of the gods, because at the end of the game, if you do not have a complete collection, then you lose. In the event that both players have a finished set, it's only then that you compare the values of your collections. But it's often far more efficient to just prevent that ending entirely by hoarding all the Zeuses. Chuck in the fact that these tiles have simple powers that let them move around the board or flip over enemies, and oh boy, you've got yourself a game simmering away on the table. And this one is just Knizia doing what he does best. A tiny hand of tiles keeps things super tactical, but the sharp endgame victory conditions mean that you have to keep an eye on the strategic as well. The pool of powers is simple enough to keep things knowable, but there's ample room to do surprising things within the rule set. The flipping of tiles introduces a dusting of memory, and the whole thing is over in just enough time that has you reaching for a rematch. And also, like the best Knizia games, the rules for this one get out of the way almost instantly, meaning that you are playing your opponent alone. Each of these simple placements is a question that you hope you have an answer to, because if you don't, then you might be fried. I love the way that these rows require both players to collaborate to finish them as well. They have an equal number of red and blue spaces that can only hold the respective players' pieces. And so you've got to work together to finish each of the rows. If you could describe a hostage situation as working together, I suppose. Games start slowly, with just 1 or 2 rows getting tentatively finished, but then rapidly accelerate as you start to run out of options and make greedy snatches to get the required pieces, hoping or praying that you can cut your opponent out of having even the option of winning the game. Chef's kiss! I am positively falling over myself in excitement to get access to the next games in this series, because they're from the designers of Undaunted. Oh my goodness, be still, my beating heart. And that is our 5 small games video over. Thank you so much for watching this video. But now, the moment of truth. Does Shut Up and Sit Down live to survive another day? £67? We're rich again!
This £67 will buy this Tom all the cans and GameCube games he needs to survive. But there are so many Toms out there, hiding in piles of leaves or in sheds. So please, be aware.